microphone.
Hello and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
I'm Jeff Onan, that's me.
Jeff, I was worried about you because I thought maybe my exuberance had killed you dead.
It's too exuberant, Hyle. You need to zoom down to my level for a minute, because I haven't really had a break yet.
Oh,
and I ate McDonald's today. That messes up my whole body.
Well,
I started drinking at noon,
I didn't tell you to eat McDonald's, hey, Jeff.
I can and will complain about the after effects of my own choices.
Okay, but you have to realize it's E3. You need to eat the Jeff Onan E3 Super Diet, which is Cheez-Its.
Oh, I haven't had any Cheez-Its. My Cheez-Its, that's what I'm missing.
I was like, oh God,
fucking French fries.
He either eats the its or the nips, and I'm gonna get it wrong, but I got it right. It's the Cheez-Its.
For fuck's sake, if you would, you're lucky. You are lucky you didn't say cheese nips. That off-brand trash.
Is it off-brand,
let us know in the
though?
live stream chat, because we are live streaming this, so let us know what your preference is. If you like Cheez-Its, say nothing. And if you like cheese nips, just say nips. I want to see how the chat lights up with that command.
Just actually, you have to type it with your nips. So make sure. Now, I know it's almost summer for half the people around the world. So what you got to do, though, is you got to get an ice cube, butter up those nips, get them nice and pointy, and then type with them. And that's what you need to do.
I was trying to game the system there so that our chat would just light up with many people saying the word nips.
Nips,
right. Because that would be funny.
But we just lost two viewers. We just lost two viewers.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen because nobody in chat prefers nips to its. Cheez-Its are the deal.
Yeah. So here's the thing, Jeff. You basically subsided on those. What else did you buy?
Beer.
Lots of beer, and I gave you shit for your beer choices too.
I had like some junk food at the Los Angeles Convention Center.
Yeah,
we ate out a couple times, I think.
A couple times, but yeah, your diet was not McDonald's last year, and because this is obviously E3 week, I'm going to scold you for not sticking to the diet that worked for you last year. Now, we could just air the drunken E3 conversation that we scrapped last year. I still get requests for that on Twitter every now and then. They're like, drunken E3 banjo conversation when? And I'm like, well, we had to re-record that because it got unhinged. And you know what? I prefer that to be kind of like a lost legend of the conversation. Sort of like our Carnival of Light, right? Like something that people want to hear. They're going to build it up as something great, but in reality, we know it's rubbish. But I want that legend of that lost conversation.
Why release that and destroy all the mythos around it when we can just record a new drunken conversation?
I am drinking Bold Rock hard cider. Now, I pitched this last night. They're not paying me, by the way, so this is just a passion pitch. Bold Rock hard cider. It is local to I think Virginia. It's made in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it's nice to support a local cider crafter, right? It's a good thing. It's helping with climate change, probably.
I'm drinking Founders All Day IPA. Founders is a local brewery in Grand Rapids. Although, as far as like craft brews go, it is like, it's not small time, it's not big time like the domestics, but it's big time for craft brews. It's like, it's got a nationwide footprint now. It's this massive conglomerate, but yeah, Founders, it's good. It's craft beer. It's fine. You know, after a few of them, they stop tasting like flavor. It's just liquid down your throat at that point.
After a few of them, you just don't feel anything. All the pain, all the regret, it just goes away.
That is the goal. That is the goal.
So this is the conversation, Jeff, and ordinarily we record the quote unquote Microsoft episode, which this year is going to be a soft rebranding of that because I'm calling them Xbox episodes from now. Because early on, right, like it was like we referred to it as Nintendo, and it was their various wares, right? So like the Nintendo GameCube, that was the generation the Xbox debuted with. So it was the GameCube, and then it was that was we had the Wii and the 360, and then the Wii U and the One, and then the Switch and still the One. But it was like, well, Nintendo is the brand, Microsoft
Still the
is
one.
the brand.
That's an Orleans song. Sorry,
it is.
Didn't mean
Orleans.
to interrupt. I have to throw out my boomer references when I have a chance.
Is Orleans
Call them like I see them.
Is that the band where they pose like naked or like shirtless on an album cover?
Probably. I don't remember that.
I remember lots of hair, like body hair, and I'm a pretty hairy guy. I don't have like the full Sean Connery thing going on, but I do have plenty of chest hair, and I like to use it. I like to nuzzle it up to people and be like, feel my chest hair. You can attest to that.
Don't
Jeff.
worry, Hyle. I remember E3 2019.
So anyway, what? So I was like, why are we calling it Microsoft? Xbox is the fucking brand. It's like, this year in Microsoft, let's talk about what's new with Windows updates. Like, fuck me. Like, let's brand it as Xbox. So this year going forward, the E3 episode is Xbox, not fucking Microsoft. That's just such a weird, antiquated thing we were clinging to from back when like Xbox was new, essentially.
Well, even Xbox changed their ways because their official game studios are now called Xbox Game Studios.
Yeah.
As of, I don't know, a couple years ago, last year.
It's been about a year.
It's a relatively recent change.
So normally we do the Xbox episode first before Nintendo. But this year we did the old switcheroo. Yesterday was going to be the Nintendo Direct. The Xbox Direct would have been, or the Xbox, whatever the fuck they called, the big stage hullabaloo with Keanu and all of our friends. That's normally on Sunday now, but this will be about Xbox today, and I feel like this is a more fruitful topic of discussion for the conversation than it ever has been before, mostly because, Jeff, you and I, especially you though, out of the whole DK Vine staff, I would say, are actually Xbox fans. And it was back in the day when Rare was first purchased by Microsoft that I was not an Xbox fan. I was a Rare fan who had to buy Xbox consoles in order to play Rare's new console games. And somewhere along the way, I realized that was just the most corrosive thing, because sitting through those damn E3 show floor, like show presentations where it was just games I didn't care about, hoping something from Rare would pop up, it was just the worst. It was the worst. And then, and it was like, it felt like I was being such a fucking hipster about it too. Like, the first year I was out at E3 and we went to the Xbox, we'll call it the Xbox Direct because I can't think of what they actually call it. Jeff, you would probably know more than I would. But,
it's just like called a press conference.
No, it has a terminology. Maybe Cameron will know if he's listening. It has a specific terminology.
Xbox.
Inside Xbox. Thank you.
Xbox?
Well, that's the that's what their directs are called. But the actual E3 thing is different. Their media is it the showcase or
media showcase? It's media showcase.
Or maybe that's the show.
We're gonna go with that.
Okay,
it's
fine,
media
whatever.
Showcase.
Whatever. I'm like, I've already drank half this bottle of cider, so I'm gonna agree to anything. So.
It's just like E3 2019.
The chest hair is coming out, people. You've been warned. There's a reason we're not doing any of these streams on camera. Well, one reason was this was an idea when we were like kicking around ideas for what we would do in lieu of E3 this year. Like I was like, we we should capture the feeling of us being on camera because people really enjoyed when you, Cameron, Mitchell, and I all appeared on camera for the last year's Kongversations at E3. And I was like, yeah, we'll do it like that Parks and Rec reunion special where they were all on, their version of Zoom. And I didn't realize that a couple extra months of quarantine hair would happen and I would look like a disheveled wreck. So I was like, yeah, let's not do that because I got to keep it sexy. I got to keep it sexy for our audience. So we're not on camera. But I want you to think about my chest hair, everybody. I want you to think about using it as a pillow tonight as I rattle off insane Swanky Kong trivia. When we first went out to E3 and went to the Xbox Direct Media Showcase press conference, it was fucking miserable because I was sitting there thinking, now obviously it was kind of cool because it was the first time we were there and it was like, oh my God, we're here. Like, this is bombastic. This is crazy. But then sitting through the games, it was like, oh, this is just dark and brooding and over the top violence and dude bro centric action. And of course I was walking in with a bad attitude as well. And then, we saw Rare Replay and Sea of Thieves and I was like, all right, that's cool. But I kept going to E3 after that, right? So every year we attended the Xbox Media Direct Showcase press conference of stars. I realized I was gradually enjoying it more and more and more. And I think part of that is because of the direction of Xbox Studios under Phil Spencer. Because he took over around, 2014? And it was a rough transition, especially for Rare fans. But Xbox has diversified their lineup. And where Xbox was a decade ago, 2010, by the way, when Donkey Kong Country Returns was announced, and all we were focused on was Nintendo, and it seemed like even Rare was kind of dead or moribund at the time. In a decade, they have turned it around to the point where I feel like I'm almost first and foremost an Xbox fan. Obviously, I still have love for Nintendo and its properties, especially Donkey Kong, which will always come first to my heart. But as far as just like, I'm a gamer, 9 times out of 10, I'm picking up my Xbox controller. And I would have never thought I would have gotten to that point.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing because not only was I never really an Xbox fan, I've been a pretty adamant anti-Xbox fan in a way. Like
I remember
through the
this.
Xbox and the Xbox 360 eras, I kind of, I looked through the rainy window at my friends playing Rare games and was like, boy, I wish I could, but I'm not buying an Xbox. Like, it's just not going to happen. I like Rare games, but, there's only so... especially because I was like a teenager and or a kid for a lot of that. I didn't have just like insane disposable income to just own like multiple consoles. So I had a PlayStation 3, I had a Nintendo Wii. I'm not going to buy a 360. You know what I mean? And for that whole time period from the Xbox and the Xbox 360, and honestly, still true for most of today, the only things in the Xbox banner that I give a shit about, really, are Halo and Rare games. So when I bought an Xbox One, I convinced myself finally to buy an Xbox One, and the reason was that twofold. One, they announced Sea of Thieves. I knew it was going to be a Rare game that was mostly online in multiplayer, and unlike Viva Pinata, unlike Nuts and Bolts, unlike Grab by the Ghoulies, those were games that I always could eventually go back and play. I wouldn't miss out. But I felt like I missed out on something in Conquer Live and Reloaded.
Yeah.
I know there were people in the community that were playing that game online when I was a kid, and I felt like it was this kind of like, well, that was this experience you'll never have ever again. It's gone. And so they announced Sea of Thieves, and I was like, I just had a strong desire to not miss out on Sea of Thieves while it was fresh and new and while people were playing it together, and I did not have any, expectations of what it would become, that it would be this game that I'm still playing more than any other game 2 years later. But that alone wasn't even enough to make me become an Xbox person. It was that and Rare Replay, because the value proposition of buying an Xbox just for Sea of Thieves it just wasn't there. But if I could play Sea of Thieves and have the opportunity to catch up back in time on everything Rare has done in the Xbox era, plus a lot of their classics from before they went to Microsoft, that's what Rare Replay is. It's just this great moment, a jumping on point where I was like, fine, all right, I'll buy an Xbox. And I did. I felt like a dirty, nasty scum because I was like, I just sat there. Now the shoe was on the other foot. I'm looking through the rainy window at my friends that are playing PlayStation 4. And I'm like, man, I want to play fucking Spider-Man. I want to play God of War.
Dude, I know
Horizon
the
Zero
feeling.
Dawn.
I know the feeling because I would love to get a PlayStation 4 to play Yooka-Laylee and Impossible Lair on it. Now, granted, I play it on my Xbox One and my Switch, but I can't play it on a PlayStation 4 because I don't own one.
Yeah, well, anyway, my second favorite game of this generation after Sea of Thieves is Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4.
Because you are Spider-Man.
Because I did eventually get a PlayStation 4 with Spider-Man.
He looks like Spider-Man, everybody. Jeff Onan looks like Spider-Man.
I've been told. They tell me I look like the Tom Holland, except fat. They don't say that. I add that part in my head. So, anyway, that being said,
people like
I own an
butt fat,
Xbox One.
Jeff.
I own an Xbox. Did you say butt fat?
You said you're Tom Holland butt fat, and I was like, well, people love butt fat.
Yeah, people like butt fat. I gotta say, I got all kinds of butt fat. I got a junk in the trunk, and there's cushion for the, I don't know. Anyway,
you got Spidey in the hiney. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't rhyme. Sorry.
I can make anyone's spider sense tingle. Basically, I got an Xbox One. I got Sea of Thieves, I've got Rare Replay, and I've got Halo, the Master Chief Collection, which was a really cool thing I wanted to have. And aside from that, I was like, wow, my Xbox One is going to be useless. Like, there's a lot of things I can buy on the Xbox One that I could have just bought on a PS4. Yooka-Laylee, the Spyro the Dragon Trilogy Remaster, Crash Bandicoot Trilogy Remaster, Crash Team Racing Remaster, Call of Duty games, Battlefield, all these games that I play, just games that I play sometimes. I could have gotten all of them on PS4 if Sea of Thieves didn't exist. But because Sea of Thieves existed, I got an Xbox. I got all those games on the Xbox. And over time, they wore me down. So it stopped feeling like I feel icky for betraying the play. Because I've owned a PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and then I bought an Xbox One. I felt like an idiot. I was like, what kind of stupid asshole? Anyway, I did eventually get the PS4, so don't crucify me, all the PlayStation fans in the live stream chat.
Oh, DK Vine is just a hive for PlayStation fans.
We're drawing them in. We draw them in from all corners. So, over time, and this is a big part of it, one is Game Pass, and two is the fact that Sea of Thieves is the first Rare game that really feels integrated into this wider ecosystem of the Xbox brand, of cross-pollination and collaboration with these other studios. And it's like, we're not just this outlier that feels weirdly out of place at Xbox. We it's not like a weird Nintendo artifact that happens to be owned by Microsoft. Now it's like, no, Sea of Thieves and Rare, they work with the Halo team, they work with the Gears of War team, they put cosmetics in the game, and it's not just slapdash either. It's this big collaboration of like creative effort. And that has drawn me into everything else, along with the fact that with Xbox Game Pass, I can just play anything I want that I normally never would have because I don't spend money that often. I don't want to pay money to play Gears of War 5 because I ultimately think it's a mediocre game and I would not spend $60 on it. But because it's on Game Pass, I played it and I beat it. And I played some multiplayer for a good few months and I enjoyed it. It's a mediocre game that I had a lot of fun with, because they had some Sea of Thieves cosmetics in it, and Sea of Thieves had some Gears of War cosmetics. And it's like, that's a good game. I played the original back on the Xbox 360 at friends' houses and stuff, and every time I was like, this is fun. I will never pay money for this. And lo and behold, with Game Pass, now they're infecting me without needing to draw more money. And Sea of Thieves has been just slowly making me more of an Xbox person, because they said, hey, we're going to put Ori and the Blind Forest cosmetics in Sea of Thieves. And like that day, I downloaded Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and I played them both. They put in Bleeding Edge cosmetics, a game that had been shown at E3 like 2 years in a row, and I never remembered any detail about it because I thought I just tuned it out. Whenever there's a trailer, I just tuned out Bleeding Edge. But when they put the cosmetics in Sea of Thieves, I downloaded the game on Game Pass day one because it was free, and now I've put like over 100 hours into that game.
Yeah, I have not, and it showed when we streamed it yesterday.
That's okay. I didn't look too bad. So
No, you look bad in IDARB.
I looked terrible. You kicked my ass at #IDARB.
I did.
So they just announced they're doing some State of Decay themed cosmetics in Sea of Thieves, which I imagine if the real E3 was happening, that probably would have been like an E3 announcement. Sea of Thieves. By the way, we still exist. Look at all our sales on Steam. And here you go. You log into the game, you're going to get these State of Decay cosmetics. But since there's no E3, they've done it a different way. Anyway, I remember distinctly, I have seen trailers for State of Decay 2 for 4 years in Xbox events, Xbox press conferences, showcases. And I never remembered a single detail about it. I just always, the second that trailer starts playing, I tune it out. I'm like, oh, it's just another zombie game. It doesn't even look good, like visually. I don't care about this. And since they announced that it's in Sea of Thieves, I've been watching YouTube videos and thinking, yeah, I might download this on Game Pass. It looks, it looks mediocre but fun. And I find myself suddenly, I'm like, every single proprietary first-party-ish Xbox IP of this generation, of the Xbox One, I've like played them all almost. Not because I'm like, oh, I'm an Xbox fan, I play everything Xbox, but just because it's there, it's available to me, and they've reduced the barrier to entry so much with Game Pass that all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I play pretty much everything they make, and I enjoy it. And I don't play my PS4 as much because with the PS4, it's like I just play maybe one big game a year, if that. But
yeah,
and they're amazing. I would say I get my quantity on Xbox and I get my quality on PlayStation, except for a few shining examples on Xbox. But anyway, I'm excited for the new Halo, which was always going to be the case. But now I'm actually expecting I'm going to own the new console, which was never in my wildest dreams. I never believed I was going to own another Xbox. I'd be owning Xbox consoles 2 generations in a row. So I'm there. I'm the guy who's like, I'm going to watch the conference. I'm not going to be interested in the games. And then they're going to put like a trinket in Sea of Thieves, and I'll be like, I should look into that game because there's lore now, and I have to sink my teeth into that. And they've just hooked me in. They know what they're doing.
They clearly do. They got you on a hook like you're a Ruby Splashtail, Jeff.
That's a Sea of Thieves reference.
Yeah,
you're going to alienate our PlayStation fans.
Oh,
Although that's my favorite thing. You see that in every Sea of Thieves stream, like major streams, and like it's the question. It's like, so hey, when is Sea of Thieves ever going to come to PlayStation 4?
Yeah,
people don't understand.
That reminds me of when Donkey Kong Country came out, and a schoolmate who was a Genesis kid was getting all like defensive, and he said, well, it's going to come to Sega Genesis, just you wait. He's still waiting.
Kids are dumb. Kids were a mistake. Yeah, so that's where I'm at. It's
cancel
basically,
kids.
Phil Spencer, and the thing is, it's not just that the Game Pass has made it easier for me to get into their stuff, although it's a huge factor for me. It really is. But it's not just that. It's what you have said, which is that they, on Xbox, are making a wider diversity of a lineup of more colorful games, more variety of games. Like the games they are making are not all say. I think from a conversation a few months ago, I did some research and watched some old E3 presentations, and I remember watching like 2005, 2006, like old presentations, and it's like, here's Fallout 3, the grayest game ever made. Here's Gears of War, the like brownest, grayest. It's like, and those are great games. Those are games I like. But holy shit, is it just draining to watch a 2-hour long media showcase where every game looks like that? Every game is the apocalypse. Every game is about shooting guns. Games that I enjoy and like, but they are firing on all cylinders now because of their aggressive acquisition and studio formation policy they've had under Phil Spencer and Matt Booty.
Oh, the Booty. Yeah,
I got to take my chance to say the name Matt Booty. I always take my chance.
It's either the Matt Booty or it's the Tom Holland butt fat. We just got to talk about. We just got to talk about it. You said like Rare no longer feels like an outlier, and I think that's twofold. I think one, with Sea of Thieves and the current leadership at Rare, I think Rare has finally found its place at Xbox. When they first joined Xbox in 2002, and then released their first Xbox game in 2003, they were still very much that Nintendo studio, that studio who has been developing for Nintendo for 8 years. And at the time, there was like the stark contrast between Grab by the Ghoulies and everything else from that early Xbox library. And they never really found their place, right? Like everybody thought, well, like Perfect Dark will do well, and it was Perfect Dark 0, so it is what it is. But it just the closest they came was Viva Pinata, right? Viva Pinata was this effort to reach kind of families and like not to like cast a stereotypical net, but girl gamers or people who were looking for something more traditionally on the Nintendo side of things than what Xbox was offering. And it had some limited success there. It did draw in some people, but usually from what I saw, it was like something that like couples who would play together. From like if the dude already owned an Xbox, this was a game he could play with his girlfriend or whatever, and it brought in some new fans. It had some success, but not to the level that Sea of Thieves does. And what Sea of Thieves
these days, it has like a cult status almost of like,
it does.
You get into Xbox like followings and people are like, oh, I'm so nostalgic for that Viva Pinata. Is that overlooked little gem. And I think everything Rare did in the earlier few generations of their Xbox, their first 10 years at Xbox, really, it's like everything they did was either in the popular consciousness, it was either trash or an overlooked little gem.
Yeah.
But never like a breakaway success. Nothing like setting the world on fire.
Yeah. So what Sea of Thieves has done is that I think it's allowed Rare.
Not that by the way, not that it was trash.
No.
Just that was like the popular opinion. Nothing they've made has been trash.
Grab by the Ghoulies has got the worst of it, and Grab by the Ghoulies is in my top 4 games of all time. So, trust me, this DK Vine is a safe space for that era of Rare. Like, we're going to defend Ghoulies. We're going to defend Nuts and Bolts. We're going to defend the Viva Pinatas. Not that they really need much defending, but you know what I mean. The only game we might, like, raise an eyebrow towards is Perfect Dark 0. And, the Kinect sports games, they were executed well for what they were, but they were lacking that. In some ways, they were lacking the I don't want to say the spirit of Rare, because that's like me claiming ownership over what the spirit of Rare could be, but it just felt like it was missing that element that Sea of Thieves is not lacking. And I think what Sea of Thieves has allowed Rare to do is Rare has finally evolved to meet Xbox and its audience sort of halfway, saying, okay, we're going to make a modern game that's tuned to all the modern gaming, like AAA title sensibilities, but it's going to have the same spirit of classic Rare. It's going to have that same design philosophy, that same attention to detail, that same sense of fun and humor. We're going to have it, and we're growing up a little bit, right? And
yeah, and part of me doesn't even think that Sea of Thieves has changed too much from like what is that core. Like, you know, it's not like they're like, oh wait, we got to make a game in a particular way to appeal to this audience. Part of me thinks that the audience has come around and the corporate structure around them has cultivated it in a way that they could have come out with Viva Pinata today and it would be as successful as Sea of Thieves.
Absolutely. So this is my second part of how Sea of Thieves has thrived where other Rare franchises since 2002 have faltered. And that's because Xbox has also met Rare halfway. Because Xbox is not the same Xbox that bought Rare. Xbox has diversified. Xbox has brought in other studios who are closer to the Rare sensibilities. And they have like this aggressive, the ID Xbox program where they have all of these essentially indie games, but they're exclusive to the Xbox platform. We played IDARB earlier today, Jeff. It was, I know I kicked your ass, and I'm going to keep bringing that up.
Well, you won 2 games and I won 2 games, so let's not leave that off the table.
I won 3 games, you won 2 games, Jeff. Don't rewrite history.
Oh, I don't know if that's even true. And the VOD will prove one of us. The VOD will prove one of us right. Somebody else can do it. I'm a lazy lad.
Check out my hairy VOD. So anyway, IDARB, like it's a small, silly, basic game, but we were laughing our heads off. It was just pure fun, colorful, weird, wacky. And I mean, you can have that. You can find so much on Game Pass, right? Like, it just runs the gamut. And I mentioned yesterday on our Nintendo episode I did with Cameron that I said, I feel like Xbox these days is what Nintendo was treading towards in the mid-90s, where they just had this wildly diverse roster of games of different genres, different age ranges, a little bit of something for everyone. And then I think around the time they sold Rare, but I mean, this was a slow degradation during the N64 era. I love the N64 era, but they lost all their third-party support then. But by the time of the GameCube, by the time there was all of this corporate turnover at Nintendo, Nintendo kind of grew into this insular niche product, right? And it's not entirely true. And, you know, they've had ebbs and flows, and they've come, you know, it's not just black and white, but I think what I feel from Xbox is what I was feeling from Nintendo around 1995. And maybe that's just the way I view Nintendo at the height of, you know, my nostalgic youth. But it is interesting to think now, like, I could basically like scratch so many itches on my Xbox, and I really can't with Nintendo. Now, I know I mostly only play DKU games, so I'm probably speaking out of turn, but when I do attend E3 and I do sit through the Xbox briefing showcase media platform bonanza, I'm actually entertained for most of it. There are some games where I'm like, whatever, this isn't for me. But there's always something that comes around that I'm like, that looks cool. That looks interesting. I might not ever play it, but I kind of want to play it. And that's the difference.
Well, and that's the thing too, that it's part of it is how much Xbox has changed, which is noticeable and true. And part of it is how much the industry, because you notice the same thing in the PlayStation. I mean, you might not notice because you might not pay that close attention.
What the fuck is a PlayStation?
Industry-wide, I feel like there is more of that diversification of interests and you know, it's industry-wide that not every game is a post-apocalyptic survival, like gray, brown. And the ones that are, and those games are great, the ones that are, they have evolved. You know, we're in this HD, we've been in HD for 10 years, like more than 10, we've been in HD for 15 years almost, or something. Who someone in the chat correct me. we have gotten around to not just making games high fidelity, high graphical, resolution and frames and everything, but it's the art direction has evolved. The detail, the colors, everything is not washed out and brown and gray like it used to be, because I think as an industry we've matured to a point where we don't think that is like, it's not this like gritty, that's what's cool. Gritty and dark is what's cool. Everyone in the industry is kind of like, oh no, you know what? You can make this atmospheric apocalyptic game and it can have the color purple in there. It can have the whole color wheel, and that's a huge industry-wide trend. But again, like you've said, it makes the Xbox Media-Ganzas, it makes them a lot more watchable when not every game is the same kind of game, when you can pay lip service to different genres and play styles, because the thing is that gaming as a whole is not something that 17-year-old boys do in their basements like it maybe was the perception in 2005. Gaming is something that the vast majority of consumers do, at least if you're under the age of 40.
Yeah,
and a lot of people over the age of...
Yeah, and that's also another aspect of all of this, Jeff, is that gaming, as it's gone on, like at first it was this product marketed towards kids. And then I think in the Xbox era, then they started marketing it towards, college students. I think PlayStation was like the first console that was really marketed towards the college crowd, but Xbox certainly was. And it's like, we'll market it towards frat boys. And then, they grow up, and now, more women than ever play games. It's no longer this gendered thing where video games are for boys. Not that it ever was, but that's certainly how it was marketed for a long time. That's what they thought on Madison Avenue, right?
Yeah.
And
I think it's the presentations reflect the diversity of the audience.
Yeah.
Now, because which the diversity was always there. It was not always reflected in the media, in the marketing, in what was prioritized by the publishers and the powers. Like you said, and you watching being part of any gaming community like Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is this welcoming, accessible community that it's such a easy to get into game that you just be a part of that community and you notice how diverse it is. It's everybody. Everybody plays that game. Children, old people, little boys, little girls, women of all ages, men of all ages, people of all colors. Like anybody can and does play that game, and there's no it always was that way. People always like to play games, but the point is that now it's like if you are like a frat boy who's like, oh, you disparage or discriminate online, it's like universally like people get mad at you for that, and it's still a problem. It's like, oh yeah, everywhere you go, you have it as a problem. But Xbox as a brand, as I think as an industry leader, it takes a really good approach to being like, no, games are for everybody. Yeah, and we have a responsibility as like shepherds of that brand and of the platform to make sure that it's safe for everybody. And so, yeah, it's just amazing how much the industry has evolved, because the players were always there. The gamers were always there. But the industry is just caught up to making sure that they feel safe, they feel welcome, that it is for everybody. It's this accessible thing. And it's not just a frat activity where you're like smashing beer cans against your head and then teabagging each other.
Yeah, I told you that the frat boys at my university, they would chug beer up their dick holes. This was something they would try to do. They would pour beer into their penises. And so that's what I associate.
I never did that one.
Yeah.
I never did that. I never tried that one out, because I always found that if you just drank 15 beers the regular way,
right,
you got whatever you wanted. A friend of mine and I, roommate, we used to do Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U several years back. We'd buy a 15 pack of beer and we would split it 50-50. I don't know, maybe I'd have 16 or maybe I'd have 14, whatever. But we'd sit down until the rack was gone by playing Mario Kart 8. We had a set of drinking rules, and neither one of us has ever seen the other guy's penis. Yeah. I haven't seen his penis. Well, I don't know if he's seen my penis. because how could I know that he never has seen it? Like, what if I was asleep and he just looked? I don't know. But I know that I've never seen his penis, and I never put any beer in mine. Not yet.
I think that's generally it was just a localized thing. This
It's those Virginians, those damn Virginians.
no, it's mostly like out of state people from New Jersey coming to this university.
Oh, it
but-
all comes out. You should have led with New Jersey. You would have understood.
But no, this was a thing they did. This was just like, hey, we're here at our fraternity soiree. Why not whip out our dicks and see who can put the most beer inside of them? I don't think this is an effective way to get drunk, nor do I recommend anybody try it at home. I think most of these assholes eventually like went to Wall Street, and they probably like, I don't know, been strangled with a belt by one of their prostitutes, and so I imagine dark endings for all of them.
You just soak like a tampon in some vodka and then put it up your butt. You don't have to like inflame your urethra in the process. It's not rocket science, guys.
I mean, I was going to say that would lead to a yeast infection, but that's something that happens to men too often from, I don't know.
Definitely some sort of, possibly bladder infection or urinary tract infection.
Yeah. You'll definitely get something wrong up there, and that's where you don't want something wrong.
Do we have to put the tag on the episode that's like, don't try this at home, like for the kids or whatever? We have a large population of little kids that listen to the Kongversation.
Oh, yes. Yeah. No, don't worry. This
PlayStation 4s.
This will be marked on YouTube as not suitable for children, as it always is. Don't worry. I'm a responsible content creator here. So yeah, anyway, I think that like now that like Xbox One, because you look at the beginning of the Xbox One, that disastrous rollout, and you look to where it is now near the end of its lifespan. And I say the end of its lifespan, the end of its traditional lifespan, because the 360 is still supported. The Xbox One is still going to be supported even when the new Xbox console comes out. So it's kind of the end of its lifespan, but nothing on Xbox really ends now. Everything's going to carry over into the new console. That this is their ethos, this is their mission statement, that quote unquote nobody gets left behind. I've got relatives who still play their Xbox 360 exclusively, and it's interesting that as a Nintendo kid, I'm so conditioned to new consoles coming out, have to switch because this won't be supported anymore, right? But that's not the case. So. And we can talk about how well crossplay will work, how will something like Sea of Thieves work. But now Sea of Thieves is also, Steam, and you can play it on, Windows 10, essentially the same thing, but
I'm really excited. It's so stupid. I want to buy this console. It's probably going to cost $400. I want to buy this console because it's going to increase my load times in Sea of Thieves. That's mainly it. I'm gonna find a way. I gotta find a way to spend $400 because the solid state drive of the next generation is just gonna fix load times, and that is sad. But that's it. That's what I want. It's like it's a tiny thing when I say it out loud, but I want it. I want it so bad. But that's not all there's gonna be. I'm gonna buy the console, and there will be so much. It will make itself worth the money over time with all the games that'll come. I really am excited about the new Halo, but mainly it's mainly I just want to play Sea of Thieves with slightly better loading times.
I know, like, I'm jealous of Cameron's loading times because Cameron plays it on Windows, and my loading times are like between, because I have the Seagate drive. I got the
I have the Seagate drive.
Oh, okay.
I got the Seagate drive for that reason only. I spent whatever that cost just to get a Seagate drive. I think it was $50 just to improve my load times in Sea of Thieves. And even that wasn't enough for me. I'm like a junkie. I'm like, all right, this time $400 will do it. And I'll finally have good enough load times. And then they're going to have an improved model, the Xbox Series X that will be, I don't know. Anyway, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. They've like I said, they've clearly got you. You're now a loyal customer, a consumer they can shake down endlessly.
I do have some bad news I need to share with you and with the chat. For anyone who tuned into our stream of Viva Pinata, Trouble in Paradise, that preceded this podcast, Donkey Kong, the SARS gorilla from our Viva Pinata garden, has been killed by
What?
Professor Pester.
What?
Donkey Kong is dead. DK. Donkey Kong is dead. It happened. I'm gonna have to get a new Donkey Kong. Well, okay, but here's the thing, Hyle. I don't know how familiar you are with Viva Pinata, but the pinatas never die. When they get killed, you watch their spirit leave the garden and then rematerialize alive, but no longer loyal and a resident of your garden. So it's kind of like it's like your Pokemon doesn't die, but if it gets defeated, it would be released into the wild. And so if I get a new SARS gorilla back, we can believe that it was the same SARS gorilla, and we can name it Donkey Kong. We can put a tie on it, just like before, just like we all did on stream, everybody. It will be fine. And the last thing I did before we left the stream is I got and this is relevant because this is about Xbox, and this is an Xbox video game. The last thing I did on stream was I got a Fizzly Bear to name Banjo. That's a bear pinata. And I should not have done so. I should have got a Limoceros, which is a rhino pinata, and I could have named it Rambi, because the trick about a Limoceros is that it will fight Professor Pester to stop it from killing any of your pinatas. So if I would have got Rambi for Donkey Kong, he never would have died. And this is where we're at, and it's my fault. So we're just going to take a short moment, about 4 seconds of silence for Donkey Kong, the SARS gorilla, starting now.
Well,
that's enough.
Profound.
It's just a video game.
Yeah. So, Jeff, I want to talk a little bit about Rare, right? I want to talk about their properties. What is ahead for Rare now that Rare has had such a breakthrough success? And it's weird to talk about their breakthrough success at Xbox when they've been with Xbox for almost 18 years, right? But it's true. Sea of Thieves. I mean, Connect Sports. Those games did well, but they don't have any of the resonance, the cultural clout that any of their other IPs have the potential of having, and certainly not Sea of Thieves. Sea of Thieves is head and shoulders above the sales that Connect Sports. Like Connect Sports, I think sold well to casuals or anyone who had a Connect, but that's about it. It's kind of like.
And the other thing is sales are not the only metric of success. Even though Sea of Thieves has sold very well, but as part of a service and a games as a service, a subscription service delivery model, a microtransaction supporting thing, like Sea of Thieves is reaching success in all these metrics of it is driving people to pay for Xbox Live subscriptions. It is driving people to pay for Game Pass subscriptions. It's keeping people on Game Pass who try Game Pass, and then they have Sea of Thieves to play. People who remain engaged with Sea of Thieves over time, and it's got an internal revenue-generating source, which is the Pirate Emporium,
right?
A microtransaction store that is which is, I think for a lot of people that's like a bad word, like oh god, microtransactions, but they've got like a really forward-thinking, consumer-friendly set of principles of like what they sell in the shop. It's just cosmetic. It's standard fare for modern multiplayer games that are not the super consumer predator ones. So those still exist, but they are, you know which ones they are. Most multiplayer games have these cosmetic. Anyway, long story short, Sea of Thieves is firing on all these cylinders that were not even as much a factor during Connect Sports, or like that Connect Sports cannot boast those same metrics of success.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, like the Emporium itself generates so much revenue for the game that you know it's not just keeping the lights on for the servers. It's actually continually turning a profit. So when you factor that in, when you factor the like around the 500,000 sales it's had on Steam in just over a week, and you factor in all the sales it's had in the physical realm, or downloads, or people subscribing to Game Pass for Sea of Thieves. And I'm sure they have ways of tracking like how many people with Game Pass, their hours on Sea of Thieves versus other stuff, or Xbox Live, which is still a thing. Then yeah, I mean Sea of Thieves, and you notice like 2 years ago when Sea of Thieves came out, only like people who like got into the game, gave it a chance, and fell in love, or hardcore rare weirdos like us really talking about it or giving it a shot, or weren't just writing it off from those early reviews. But as the game has evolved, as they've done these updates, these free updates, both in the major events and then the monthly updates when they hit that cycle, then it started to get reevaluated, and word of mouth started to spread. Hey, you got to try Sea of Thieves again. Hey, you got to try Sea of Thieves again. And then that's been picked up by the big media sites. And now all of a sudden, Sea of Thieves, it's so weird. It is so weird to be this into a game, this into a rare game that has a huge following in gaming. It's
so weird. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's like, you know, you've been a fan of this underground band for all this time, and now like they've signed with a major record label and everybody's listening to it and talking about how, and you're kind of like jealous. You're like, I was there first. I was their fan before you even heard of them, and you kind of get hurt and you cry in the corner a little bit. Like when the Beatles left the cavern and they, you know, went to London, kind of like that. That's what it feels like. But it's great because I've wanted this for Rare for 18 years. So I'm not complaining. But
yeah, so I mean, it's crazy because I will regularly see people or communities that I'm in, or you know, people I follow on Twitter, or whatever, that have nothing to do with Rare, nothing to do with DK Vine, nothing to do with video games. Like, I'm not even talking about like, oh, I have a group of gamer friends I talk to about video games, and they like this video game. People that I just encounter for unrelated reasons will bring up Sea of Thieves. And I'm like, oh, you play that? And they're like, oh, hell yeah, I'm on my way to Pirate Legend. And it's like, oh, dude, this is crazy. And it happens regularly now. It's like maybe once a month I encounter someone I had a prior connection with, and then I find out later they play Sea of Thieves. It
happened to us today. Jeremy Thorne, who was involved in the television station that Chad and I wrote Elvis and Slick Monty for, produced Elvis and Slick Monty for. He became an associate with us, and he became involved with DK Vine around the turn of the last decade. He did the Smashed update, but kind of fell out of touch with him as time went on. He popped into our live stream today and started talking about how much he loves Sea of Thieves. It's like, hell yeah, Jeremy, hell yeah. But yeah, it's great, and it's I don't want to like toot my own horn because I usually do that under the covers late at night, but when I went to Rare and I played Sea of Thieves, and this is when it was like the very basic build where the only thing you could really do was sail and fire your cannons at ships. Like it was a very rudimentary build, but we saw the grand vision for the game. We were told like everything they wanted to add to it, everything that had been planned. And I told them, I said, hey, because, you know, they were asking for our input the whole time. And I was like, I have to be honest, like, I feel like this is the game that's going to bring in new fans who aren't just Rare fans. Because that's been Rare's biggest problem, right? The only people really getting them a chance, aside from, you know, your Viva Pinata converts or the people who bought Kinect Sports because it was Xbox's answer to Wii Sports. Aside from those people, like, this Sea of Thieves will bring in new people to Rare who don't give a damn about Banjo-Kazooie, who have never played a Conker game, who, you know, maybe not even played the Donkey Kong Country games or knew they were developed by Rare.
Yeah,
you know,
well, it goes both ways. It goes both ways because I have a lot of friends that I met because of Sea of Thieves, or I'll meet strangers on Sea of Thieves. And to me, that person, I'm not thinking of them like, oh, that's a Rare fan. I'm thinking, this is a Sea of Thieves fan. And then later I find out like, Oh, they're a huge Rare fan, and they love Banjo, and they like Viva Pinata and Donkey Kong and Battletoads and stuff. And that's a cool thing with the fact that they have cosmetics in the game for those video game franchises, for a Banjo ship set, that everyone you encounter, you show them, I'm a fan of Banjo, I've got the Banjo ship set. And so when you encounter strangers, there's almost like a nod, like I see what you like. You like Killer Instinct. So that we have at least something in there to, that ship there that, we encounter a player and they have the Viva Pinata ship, which is a rare one. You don't see that as often, but you're just like, oh, they like Viva Pinata. I bet I could get along with those guys. And it's this little mini connection you can make. And that's amazing. As a social game, Sea of Thieves has a way of doing that, which is just awesome. It also has its very fair share of like the anti-social interactions, which are more common, but that's a multiplayer like PvP experience. You expect that. You want that.
And
to
honestly,
be part of the
if you're sailing with your
toolkit.
friends, that's kind of it keeps the whole experience from being negative because you are going on an adventure with your friends. Like that is the appeal. You can play it by yourself, but to get the most out of it, I tell people you have to get a group of friends, and if you don't have friends who play it, that's one thing. But like more and more, as more people get into it, one way or another, now it's on Steam, right? So. And it's cross-play, so
I don't
everybody...
think it's an excuse. It's not an excuse because if you don't have friends that play it, you will make friends. If you reach out to the right people who point you in the right direction, Discords, the Xbox is built in looking for group feature. There's so many ways for you to get connected with other players, and it's a welcoming community. People want to help you out when you reach out to them outside of game. And they're like, hey, I'm new to this game. I don't have anyone to sail with. Anyone here want to like join my friends list? And you just make a new friend. And I've never done that with complete strangers through a video game before. And I've been on online multiplayer games for 15, 20 years, 15 years. I've never had that experience of like, most of my friends list are people I didn't know until I met them in the game.
Right. Yeah, and we've had like some of those great encounters of like I remember Hungering Deep, allying with people, complete strangers, but then we all united over several hours to defeat the Megalodon, the Hungering one, and you'll have great encounters that will renew your faith in humanity. So
there's a married couple that we made friends with in the Skeleton Thrones event. In like the first week of June 2018. So it has been 2 years. And this married couple we made friends with playing the game, and they both played the game together, and we encountered them, and we did a bunch of challenges together, and it was a great thing. I added them as friends. They're still on my friends list. They still play Sea of Thieves. 2 years later, I still play with them once in a while.
Yeah.
2 years later, just complete strangers, but yeah.
So
that's what Sea of Thieves has.
As Sea of Thieves builds on its success, and that's the great thing too about it being successful, it's going nowhere. It's an important, vital brand for Xbox. So, I remember there was all this talk the first year. It was like, well, they'll eventually shut down the servers, and this game will be a dead game. I don't think we have any fears, any worries about that for the long foreseeable future. I think Sea of Thieves is here to stay. It's going to be something that Rare will always have something being cooked up for. So,
yeah, so you talk about the Steam release. That game came out 7 days ago on Steam, and for all 7 days, consecutive 7 days, the peak consecutive, what's the word I'm looking for? Concurrent. The peak concurrent player numbers, like the total players playing the game on Steam all at the same time, the peak has increased every day for 7 days. And that's that never happens. That's rare. Because normally a brand new game comes out and it peaks in the first 48 hours, and then every single day it gets a little bit less than that peak until it tapers off. Sea of Thieves has had the opposite case where it's building momentum. It's got and today it peaked at over 50,000 players all playing at the same time just from Steam. And if 50,000 players bought it on Steam in the past 7 days, or that's 50,000 playing at the same time, how many bought it and were not playing at that time? Do you think that's 20%, 10% of how many people have bought it, but just were not logged in all at the same time? Like, according to estimates, they've sold between 200,000 and 500,000 new copies of Sea of Thieves all on Steam, just in the under 7 days. And this is a 2-year-old video game.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like this
so,
as a Rare fan. Sea of Thieves is, I mentioned Ghoulies earlier, it's in my top 4 games. Well, Sea of Thieves is I know it's your top game of all time.
It is.
And it's, if Donkey Kong Country 2 wasn't so important to me, I would also have it at that position. Donkey Kong Country 2 is still my top favorite game, but Sea of Thieves is number 2. Absolutely. And, it's great because it's a living Rare game. It is a Rare game that's ongoing. You can jump in any time. It's not like, you can get caught up on most things. So don't let history behind it be a burden or a barrier in getting into it. Yeah, it's been out for 2 years. Yeah, 2 years of events have gone on. You can get caught up. You can even play most of those events in some form or fashion. And but it's just got a lot of storied history behind it. In the expanded universe too, like there's lore before the game that you can get caught up on, and then it's just going to keep building from here. So I would really suggest, now that it's on Steam, if you don't even have an Xbox but you have Steam, get into it. Play with us.
Reach out and get into our Discord if you're a DK Viner, a DK Vine fan, Kongversation listener. Get into our Discord, where the whole point of it is posting, hey, I want to play tonight. Anyone want to play with me? And then you get a crew together. It's that easy. I mean, it's not that easy. It depends on if people are busy or whatever. But it's a small group. And that's the thing. There's other Discords too. You can get into Discords where there's 40,000 people, if that's something you're looking for, and you can instantly get hooked up with a stranger. Yeah. But if you want to get hooked up with Rare fans, like familiar faces like us, and then you can just hang out in the chit chat with us in the Discord when you're not playing. We post updates and like news in there, so you don't miss out on stuff.
Yeah.
It's great. But the point is this: Sea of Thieves is in a weird spot in terms of specifically the conversation about E3, because Sea of Thieves is not having these big E3 moments anymore. It's not like a massive expansion is coming out. But what's great is that Sea of Thieves has an update every single month instead of a big burst of content. They have a steady stream of content. It's really healthy. It's in a really good place. That's the state of Sea of Thieves. That's going to continue to be something we can play on the Xbox for years.
Yeah, it feels like a real evolving world, and that, one month will lead to the next month, and things happen, storylines progress. Multiple storylines sometimes are going on, and if you're paying attention, there'll be clues to what's coming maybe years down the line. So it's just, and it's really cool too, because it is part of the Donkey Kong universe. It is part of this shared tapestry that we celebrate here at DK Vine. And we were talking on our stream today, our Sea of Thieves stream. We've been streaming Sea of Thieves for 2 hours for every day of the not E3 Stream-A-Ganza, and we'll be streaming it again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, and 9 p.m. British Summer Time. But Jeff and I will be continuing the Tall Tales. And of course, we do a weekly Sea of Thieves stream, Stream of Thieves. That's every Sunday, so check that out if you've been tuning in for the Stream-A-Ganza and you like what you see with Sea of Thieves. Definitely watch our streams. Those are a little bit longer, they're a little bit more involved, but I can say starting this Sunday we are going to try. We're jumping platforms. It's going to be on Twitch, so check that out. Anyway,
so Hyle, I did want to ask you though, getting away from Sea of Thieves.
Do you want to talk more about chugging beer from your penis, Jeff? Because I could talk about that for a little bit longer.
No, put it on the back burner. We'll bring it up if we run out of other material.
Okay.
Which we will. But there's other games in the Rare relevant sphere and in the DKU sphere that also would probably have had a presence at this E3, or something at least that we would be speculating would have had a presence at this E3. If E3 was really happening, we would be in this podcast talking about, what's the deal with Everwild, Battletoads, other things. So what is the deal, Hyle?
What's the deal with Battletoads? I don't know. So we played it last E3. We all played it last E3, and we had a good old time. It was good, solid fun. It was funny. I mean,
We actually had a great time. I mean, we were laughing our asses off. We actually had a great time.
yeah, and I know like there's been a lot of criticism about the art direction and whatever, but once you actually sit down and play it, it makes sense. Like that's the best I can put it. I feel like you know how like the nuts and bolts design on our episode artwork for this episode, I put the nuts and bolts Banjo and Kazooie, and you know people don't like the way those look in a vacuum, but when you're playing nuts and bolts, it kind of just makes sense, right? Doesn't really.
I think it's this thing of sorry. I think it's like this. There's this whole thing in online critic culture of like everybody thinks that every cartoon looks like shit unless it looks like the cartoons that were on like 12 years ago. Everyone is on like a 12-year delay of like, oh, that was the pinnacle of cartoons. Every cartoon today looks the same and it looks like shit, which is not true because none of them look the same. It's like they call it the Cal Art style, which is not a style. You're talking about 1,800 different looking things that aren't even the same style, but it's always that. And it's basically just this gut reaction that anything that is like a bombastic cartoon, people immediately have this gut reaction of like, cartoon, that looks like shit. I wish it looked like a cartoon from 12 years ago. And, you know, that's just how it goes. But I also feel like people shut up about it after they get used to the look of it. And,
I mean, I know the feeling because I say, you know, the pinnacle of cartoons was Shrek, right? You know how I go on and on about how much I love Shrek, Jeff. And I feel like if something doesn't look like Shrek, I really can't invest emotionally in it.
You think that Shrek could chug beer through those weird little ear funnels he has that are his ears? They're like, have you seen Shrek's ears? They're like antennae, but funnels like a funnel, like a pitcher plant. That's what Shrek's ears look like. I wonder if he could chug beer through that.
You know what? I can't say for sure because I actually haven't. I saw Shrek once, I think.
I know
school.
you did not. You're a fucking liar. You don't know shit. Anyway, watch Shrek or get the fuck out. Anyway, no, I think that's a thing. I think that it's not anything to do.
Get the fuck out of my own website.
I don't think it's anything to do with how Battletoads actually looks that is the problem. It's the fact that it is a modern-looking cartoon. Not that all modern cartoons look the same, just the fact that it does look modern in a sense. It's got a new design that it doesn't look the same as it did in 1991, as an example. Like, people have an idea and they're like, oh, a new art style and it's cartoons. I am pre-programmed to hate on cartoon looks because I'm jaded and I can't like new cartoons. I have to like older cartoons. Anyway, it's stupid. People will get over it. And the other thing is that in terms of it's been a while and we haven't heard anything about this game, right?
It's been a year. It's been a year since we played Battletoads.
I have heard the complaint or the worry or the anxiety of like, oh, they're not saying anything about Battletoads. It didn't look like that big of a game. It's a small indie game. Where is it? Did they cancel it? I wonder what's going. And I don't. You know, I've seen that a couple different times. I feel like the fact that it's like a hand-drawn game is immediately ingrains the expectation for me that this game is going to take years. And they did that with the really modern, like popular example is Cuphead. The video game Cuphead was at E3 for like 5 years. And that's hand-drawn games with a small team. Cuphead, it was like 1 or 2 people. This is probably maybe a dozen people or less working on this. This is a small team. I don't quote me on that. My point is, this is an indie game, and people might have the expectation that, oh, Rare is a massive studio. Where's Battletoads? Rare's helping co-develop it with an indie studio. It's a small team, and it's a hand-drawn game. It's gonna take forever. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out in 3 years.
And also the COVID pandemic has kind of put everything in this weird state of limbo that wouldn't really exist were there no pandemic. So I feel like
Yeah, people are behind on their work, and people are reevaluating when to demonstrate their work.
yeah.
So, like, the game might be behind, or it might just be that there's not been a good time to show it off to the world. You know what I mean?
think we would have had a substantial update. We would have had a substantial update on the game this E3. It would have been on the show floor again. We would have seen more of it. We might even have a concrete release date, and we might get a concrete release date later in the summer whenever Xbox deals with whatever news they were going to have at this E3. But also, COVID has pushed some things back. It's even kind of slowed down the Sea of Thieves monthly updates just a tad. They're still doing updates, but they're scaling back.
They're almost a month behind because the main feature of the most recent update for the May update was pushed to June. It hasn't come out yet. It's coming out sometime in June. But the main feature, like each month has like a main element. And the very main element of this update got pushed back a whole month. And the reason is that if you're working from home, but you're working on a shared project like a build of a game, and you're editing that build and then uploading it to the server, it's like the download time to like, okay, I made a change, I got to share it with you, it's got to come to my house, we're going to make a pitch, we're going to make a patch, we're going to make a build. This new build now has to like go to the server, it's got to come back all the way to my house. It's way different when everyone is working from several hundred different homes versus everyone is in a building sharing data with each other. You know what I mean? Sharing data is so slow when you're working from home. That's just it's gonna affect the entire industry. Everyone is slow. And just purely on that aspect alone, let alone just the changes to productivity that is going to come with everyone's like getting used to working from home, a complete change of scenery and style of work, and like productivity is going to take a hit. The way that they work together and organize. Obviously, anyone who's listening to me explain this is saying, "Why are you explaining this? It's obvious." So I'm going to stop talking. But yeah, expect delays. That's the bottom line. Expect delays.
I know. I brought
big
this
holiday
up.
games are not going to be ready. That kind of stuff. It's all happening.
Yeah, Christmas is canceled, kids. Sorry. I know I brought this up before in defense of the Battletoads art style, but I really have to say, when you play the game, what becomes immediately apparent is that it's channeling the time period Battletoads, the original Battletoads games did come out. It's got this late 80s, early 90s vibe to it. But it's done through a more modern animation style. But the actual aesthetic, the attitude, it is so like 1991, it hurts. And that is really conveyed when you sit down and play the game. It's not something that the trailers have conveyed too much, a little bit, but it's abundant when you play the game. And it is very funny. They're like dark jokes, but like dark and clever jokes, not like just edgelord. It is well written from what we've seen, and it is funny, and it is fun to play. It feels like the old games, and just as challenging as the old games, but with a bit of a more modern sheen to it. So,
no, I think it's actually really well made because it's going to evoke everything you want out of a game that you're nostalgic for, the nostalgia of the era of this is a throwback to an old game. But it's going to, in all of the right ways, there are wrong ways to update a game like that.
yeah.
In all of the right ways, it is updating it and making it modern while feeling classic and just that warm, like, oh, yes, you just excited. Battletoads are back. It's this nostalgic thing. It's not how I would want them to do something like Banjo, for example. I don't think I would want Banjo to be like, oh, it's a new Banjo game. And guess what? It feels like it's 1999. I don't know if I want that. I want a new Banjo to be like, this is what Banjo would be like if it kept getting sequels till 2020.
Sure.
I want it to feel like a big new thing. But Battletoads is this perfect IP to be like, a retro throwback where that's the point. You want it to be class.
But you also
Right.
don't just want to do a game that looks like it could have been on the Super Nintendo. You want it to look like a modern game, but you've got to also it's a balancing act.
You can do it either way, but it's been done to death. The idea of like, oh, it's a brand new game, but it's in 16-bit sprites. Like that is good. I like a lot of games like that. Shovel Knight is one of my favorite games, but it's been done a lot. It's not like novel, it's not exciting, but I think the way they're doing it gives so much personality. And I think that's really what Battletoads always was. It just wasn't realized on the hardware. It was this vibrant cartoon with wacky animations and stuff that you couldn't realize it in 8-bit, you couldn't realize it in 16-bit, but it was there. And this is the realization of like what it was going for, like the crazy animations and the vibrant art. It's a beautiful, exciting, silly, humorous, difficult but fun game. And I also think that the like playing it with friends is such a huge like boon for it.
Oh yeah.
Any game that's hard is 100 times less frustrating if it's hard but you do it with friends. Because if you do the same thing, if you die 50 times, you're pissed off. But if you die 50 times in front of your friends, you have to laugh. It just feels silly.
That's why the Vietnam War was such a riot. Everybody just had such a good time.
I didn't like that reference, Hyle. My dad was a Vietnam. I don't know what I mean by that.
Your dad was a country.
He was, yeah. He was one of the. I don't remember which way. He was south, north. I don't remember. He was a country.
Yeah. No, but I know what you're saying. I mean, I'm a big fan of co-op games. I don't like. Now it was fun kicking your ass at IDARB today. So much fun, Jeff. But by and large, the type of games I like is when I get to team up with my friends and complete some shared objective. Going back to Donkey Kong Country, one of the reasons Donkey Kong Country made my soul sing compared to something like the Super Mario Brothers games is the Super Mario Brothers games had this weird antagonistic relationship between Mario and Luigi, right? Where it felt like in Donkey Kong Country, Donkey and Diddy were working together. And like you could do the 2-player contest if you just hated the person in the room with you, but you could do a 2-player team and have a really good time. And that's carried forward into Sea of Thieves, where I essentially get to, hang out with up to 3 of my friends, or if we server hop for 2.5 hours and take over 2 galleons, 8 of my friends, as we did last Saturday off stream. That was something that we tried with the majority of DK Vine and Golden Sands blog post, Sans Jeff, although you did show up in a party chat, and Rare Gamer. So it was a lot of fun, and we took over 2 galleons. We had the Banjo Galleon and the Conquer Galleon, and we exploited the Reaper's Bones. So
yeah, and after you logged off, I joined. So then I got a taste of that.
So you got my sloppy seconds, which is what they called it after you suck the beer out of it. Anyway, so Battletoads is another one of those. Like Battletoads was a game you could play with friends back on the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo and all the various platforms Battletoads was on. But I'm excited to do that in the modern day, right? Like, and it's a great game to play with friends, and we had a great time.
Should be noted, it's not as of yet DKU. The previous Battletoads games are not DKU games. DKU is like what we consider it starts with Donkey Kong Country and games that spin off out of that. So not everything Rare does is DKU, right. But it doesn't mean we're not excited about it. And the other thing is someone at E3 in an interview asked Craig Duncan, the studio head at Rare, since the new game is coming out after 25 more years of Rare history, with all of their iconic games that have happened between then and now, would we see cameos or references to other Rare games and appearances by other characters? And he gives a kind of coy non-answer. Now, I don't want to read into that because I also feel like Craig Duncan, in every interview he gives, he knows exactly what he's willing to say or reveal Like
Yeah.
he's prepared in a way that no matter what you ask him, he can almost always give a coy non-answer if it's not the thing. He's like yeah, like no, maybe there'll be cameos, but I'm not ready to talk about that. It doesn't mean there will be. He could have just come out and said
I
flat
don't
no,
know.
but I feel like he has that way of like even when he can say no, he still seems a little coy, and I don't know if I can trust my read on him.
I don't know, Jeff. I think he has a bad poker face. I think when you hit upon a point that he's not ready to reveal, but he knows the answer, he does this half grin and he tries to fight it. It's like when you like tickle a stranger and they're trying not to laugh because they don't know you, and why are you running your fingers over their belly? But
You do that? You do that a lot?
Look, I'm just trying to make a point here, Jeff. What I do in my free time away from DK Vine, that's my own personal business, Jeff. So I would prefer if you don't ride my dick about this. So anyway, Craig Duncan, I would love to play poker with him because I think I could take him to the cleaners. The only problem is I don't know how to play poker because it bores me, because there's no lore attached to poker. So I don't like card games in general. So anyway, yeah, it might be DKU because Battletoads is this weird kind of Rare IP. It was Rare's biggest IP before the Rare brand became like bigger than God itself. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it was right in that time period, right? It's like there were still Battletoads games coming out right up to about the point when suddenly you got Donkey Kong Country and then Killer Instinct. And like Battletoads stopped just a little before that. Like when's the last Battletoads game? You know, it's probably not that far before Donkey Kong Country. So you could see Battletoads as this retro thing that is the last of Rare's retro things. It's the last of an era of pre Donkey Kong Country. Or you could see it as it's the first of like modern Rare. And if that's the case, then it would make sense for it to reference other modern Rare. Like,
it's like this in between state where they had RC Pro Am and Battletoads, but I think with Donkey Kong Country, that's when they rebranded to Rareware, and they got the golden R logo, which has stayed with them in some form or fashion ever since. Even after they lost the Rareware branding, they've more or less kept that R logo, and that started with Donkey Kong Country. So. I would say Battletoads was like their biggest success, and then they kind of like left it behind, and it was only until like more recent times that Battletoads has been embraced again. And it was always this open question during like the Nintendo era of Rare when they were Nintendo exclusive, was like, hey, you think they'll ever make another Battletoads game again? But it always felt like it was from a different era, and it wasn't until more recent times that they've re-embraced it. I think Rare Replay in particular was really like bringing Battletoads back home into what Rare is.
We talked a little bit about this, of like there was this boom in time when Rare really became rebranded back to being Rare again around 2015, where Rare cameos were really common. I think that was around the time when you have Rare Replay celebrating all this Rare stuff, but you also had Battletoads appeared in Shovel Knight in the Xbox exclusive version of it. You had a bunch of Rare IP showing up, referencing the Worms game, Worms Revolution or something, Worms Mass Destruction. I don't remember the name of it. There was all these little and hashtag IDARB, and then before that in the kind of the late 360 era, you had Minecraft skins and all that stuff. So I think that in all of that, Battletoads has kind of been embraced.
Yeah.
Or was Battletoads even a Minecraft skin? It might. Yeah, I don't remember. But anyway,
there's so many.
It doesn't matter.
Skins.
I don't think that Battletoads is this thing that they left behind and then it just became too old. I think that they do that with everything. That's my take. I think that Battletoads was their big thing for a minute, and then for a minute. And I think Donkey Kong would have had a longer shelf life because of the nature of it being this Nintendo brand. But they left Banjo behind, and Banjo hasn't had more prominent appearances than Battletoads, in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
then after Banjo, you had Viva Pinata. It was this brief thing. It's like there's a game, there's a sequel, there's a DS game, there's a party game, there's a cartoon, and then it died, and they moved on. They had new stuff to do. And I think they just do that every generation. It's like, you know, and on none of them fade to obscurity. They're still popular. They get referenced in these big crossover things like little cameos and things, and then they all come back in rare replay. But I don't think it's like a special attribute of Battletoads that they left it behind because they entered a new era, that they became a different company. I think they left it behind because they do that with every IP when it's just his time to stop making sequels and make something new.
One also, let's be honest, the style of game that Battletoads was super popular when Battletoads was hot and new, but I think the industry got away from that, especially heading into the 64-bit era. Honestly, Grab by the Ghoulies would have worked as a Battletoads game had it been designed around that. But
yeah. Jordan in the stream pointed out Killer Instinct, Battletoads, Rash playable in Killer Instinct 2013. So that's a big one.
Cameron says Worms WMD.
That might be the game. Yeah, Worms WMD. It had a bunch of cosmetic masks that the worms could wear, and you put a mask on and it's like, oh, I'm Banjo, I got a Banjo mask. It had a ton of rare characters, but it also had an item, a weapon that you could call in an airstrike or something, like a helicopter strike, and Joanna Dark would fly in hanging from the dangling ladder of a helicopter and shoot guns, and that was actually Joanna Dark. It was not a worm in a mask. But that game had a bunch of references to rare IP.
Also Ukulele.
And it also had, masks of the Ukulele cast. Because Team 17 published Worms WM. They published the Worms. That's like, Worms is like their Mario. It's Team 17's main franchise, I feel like. But Team 17 published the Ukulele games.
Sean in the live stream chat says, what we're talking about is the thing that pisses Rare fans off. For your information, Rare doesn't stick with IPs like most studios, and most people expect them.
Yeah, I think it pisses people off. But I think that in a lot of ways, you can see the good aspects. Like, I can see objectively what the good aspects of doing that are. Because if Greg Mails and the Banjo team did nothing but Banjo sequels for like 3 generations in a row, we never would have gotten Viva Pinata or Ghoulies or Sea of Thieves. And that's a tough pill to swallow for me. And like, imagine if they never...
That's a tough beer to chug.
Imagine they never stop making Battletoads, but that means that we just don't have Donkey Kong Country or Banjo or Viva Pinata or Ghoulies or Sea of Thieves. And it's just because, we're the Battletoads studio. Right. And a lot of studios are that way. A lot of studios are, we are the studio that makes Halo games. We are the studio that makes Gears of War. We are the studio that makes Assassin's Creed. That's it. You don't, and I feel like I'm not disparaging that, and I think the people who work on that still have a lot of passion for that. But I can see why reinventing with a brand new IP every few years in a new genre is a desirable thing for someone. If they want to do that, then I get it. As a fan, speaking as myself as a fan, obviously I want them to make a new Banjo game. But the point is, they are making a new Battletoads game. Battletoads didn't die. And that they might make a new Banjo game. It could happen anytime. I don't think it's happening right now, but it will happen eventually.
Cameron says it's a singular studio with the IP stable of a massive company, owned by a massive company, so they could farm games out, but Rare simply can't generate infinite sequels and head up all of them on their own. And that is the point. That is it. But that is also what modern Rare is now doing. You saw a little bit of this early on in the Rare Renaissance. They went to Team Dakota, right? Or Team Dakota came to them with Project Spark, and they were like, "Hey, we can make Conquer in Project Spark. Let's make a Conquer sequel." And I loved Conquer's Big Reunion. I thought Conquer's Big Reunion was fantastic. The one episode we got of it, but it did have tools in there you could add to the story if you wanted. I think that's the ideal tone of a Conquer sequel that I would want it to. But from there, now they completely kind of gave Killer Instinct away. But now with Battletoads, they went to Delilah, or Delilah pitched to them, and they're like, yes, we like your vision. We want you to make Battletoads. Here is a Paul Collins to supervise it for you. So in some ways, it is still a Rare game, but the legwork and a lot of the creative work is being done by an outside studio. That's the way we're going to see sequels to the classic Rare IPs going forward. That's the way we're going to get a new Banjo game. And it will happen. And, you know, like a couple years ago, I was on the fence about this. I even said when we did a Banjo 3E speculation episode, like, hey, if they do Banjo 3, how would it be? And I was like, you know, Banjo is arguably Rare's biggest classic IP. Obviously, Sea of Thieves is now Rare's biggest IP in every sense of the term. But Banjo as a iconic property, I think, absent of Donkey Kong, right? Battletoads maybe of a particular vintage, but Banjo-Kazooie is kind of like the Rare property. And you even see that a little bit in Sea of Thieves with how much it ties into Banjo lore. But
so here's a point that's been brought up in the chat I want to address.
Okay.
Is the question of, okay, so they're one studio, they can't make endless sequels to all their IPs and make new games. But Sea of Thieves hasn't stopped being made. Sea of Thieves has now been in development for 6 years, and it's not going to stop. So the question is, there's the fear, there's this question lingering of, well, if they never stop making Sea of Thieves, you know, if Sea of Thieves took 3 years to make, and then they moved on, and then the next game was not Banjo, and then they did 3 years, and then the next game was not Banjo, people would be like, that stinks, it's not Banjo, but it's just one game, and then 3 years from now they'll make another game, maybe the next one will be Banjo. But since this game doesn't have an ending, and it's gone for 6 years, and it's going to go... They said they envision it being a game that lasts more than 10 years, and I totally see it coming.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah, the question is, you know, this is what Sean proposes in chat, does Rare perpetually become the Sea of Thieves studio? My answer to that is no.
No.
Because, one, they have more than doubled in size in the past, 2 years.
They've expanded. They've expanded.
So they can make Everwild. They expanded Donk. So they can make Everwild. Everwild is already another thing. So they're not. So already we know they're not the Sea of Thieves studio. At the same time, they are financing and working on Battletoads. They're working with Delilah, but they're paying for it. They're marketing it. They have marketing teams working on it. All these people within the, you know, it is part of the studio's projects. Yeah. And then you have Everwild. And I want to point out that a lot of Sea of Thieves, the core group of it is still a large team at Rare working on that game, or multiple teams. Large group of people still working on the game. But they have, in addition to expanding the size of the studio, they've expanded their Sea of Thieves team outside the studio. There is Flix Interactive and another one, and I just now all of a sudden I feel terrible that I can't think of the other studio, that are providing resources and development and design, engineering, all this stuff, programming, working on features for Sea of Thieves. And it's actually, the Flix Interactive one is something you see almost every month. Something in the monthly update was done by Flix Interactive as part of a team that works with people at Rare. Like, it's a team, it's a Flix Interactive team with Rare team. It's a mix, you know. And this is a studio that's down the road. This is a studio that's in Rare's vicinity that they're helping out with the game. So Sea of Thieves, I don't want to say that they are farming out Sea of Thieves so they can work on other stuff. But in a small sense, that's part of it. Like, they've expanded on Sea of Thieves. They've expanded outside the studio. They're working with all these other teams that are helping them make it a realization. And they've proven that because of that, and while doing that and growing the studio, they are working on another game, not just a small indie game like Battletoads, but a massive AAA game with a lot of hype like Everwild. And so, no, I don't think there's no part of me that thinks, Sea of Thieves is going to stop Rare from branching out and making new stuff and more stuff and bringing back old stuff. No. It's not that Sea of Thieves is taking up the whole studio's time. It's just now become one facet of the studio.
And some
maybe
people
a permanent
have
fixture. But,
some people have already moved on from Sea of Thieves. They've jumped to other projects. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Sea of Thieves is getting smaller, but I think it's just that it's not this finite thing. It's like the whole studio can get bigger, their capacity can get bigger, and I think people don't really understand the extent to which they kind of receded, like before Sea of Thieves. Like they contracted a lot.
Yeah.
I think as a studio, and now they're growing a lot.
But anyway,
because they have success, so they can do it.
But as I was saying, like I was on the fence 2 years ago. I was like, I think a Banjo sequel would have to be done internally. Now, though, I've completely flipped. I'm like, yes, the way to do it is one of these outside studios with maybe Greg Mail supervising. Maybe he's the Paul Collins role, or maybe it's somebody else at Rare, because they certainly have enough capable people to handle it. But this is the way a Banjo is going to get made. And I think I would embrace that wholeheartedly, because it would allow Rare and their people to make what they want, but it would also give the fans what they want. That's what we're seeing with Battletoads. That's how we will eventually get a Banjo sequel. And one day we will get a Banjo sequel, Banjo-Kazooie sequel. So it's just a matter of time.
All these Rare fans are not out here, praising Rare for making a sequel to the Arthur Pendragon quadrilogy of Ultimate Play the Game titles on the Commodore 64, but they did it, and they're not getting any credit.
Yeah. So I think if you're really like more like DK Vine's in a weird place, right, as Rare fans, because we celebrate a lot of Rare more than say like very specific Rare fans like Banjo fans or Donkey Kong fans. Like we celebrate the Donkey Kong universe, which covers a wide gulf of Rare. But we're not like the totality of Rare, but we still appreciate the totality of Rare. Anyway, my point is we can look at a game like Sea of Thieves and see how it ties in to Banjo and Conker and Viva Pinata and Perfect Dark and Killer Instinct and Cameo and Donkey Kong and Arthur Pendragon. And we're like, oh, this is so cool. This is so cool. But that's a hard pitch to make to those who are, like have a Switch and they're like, where's my Banjo remaster? Where's my new Banjo game? Banjo-Kazooie are in Smash, and I want more. And to that I say, I'm sorry, but when we get a new Banjo game, I don't know when, could be fucking 10 years from now. We'll get one, though. But when we get one, it will be for the Xbox platform.
There's a lot of rumors going on. I don't know. I'm not well tuned into the Xbox rumor mill because I play the Xbox. We talked about, am I an Xbox fan now? Yeah, anyway, I'm not well tuned into the rumor mill there, but it's like a pretty persistent rumor that one of these new studio formations that have been formulated by Xbox Game Studios is working on a Perfect Dark game. I've seen that every so often for a couple of years now that was like in the works. So I don't know. I think that people always want to move the goalposts because they talk about how Rare doesn't acknowledge their old IP, and then it really just comes down to no. What I meant is Rare doesn't make Banjo 3E, and I think that it's like people and then people will gatekeep if people who have them, and if that's what you want, if you're a Banjo fan, that's great. I get that wanting one thing. Like I'm a fan of stuff where I want that thing to get revived. But I see those people go around gatekeeping being a Rare fan and being like, they consider themselves a Rare fan when the only thing they like is Banjo and like maybe Conker, probably not even Conker, maybe Diddy Kong Racing, and like, but then they go around saying like, oh, Sea of Thieves is not a real Rare game, and like, but I never played, I don't enjoy Killer Instinct, Perfect Dark, Viva Pinata, Ghoulies, like all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I only own a Switch. I haven't played a Rare game in 20 years, and but I'm a real Rare fan, and you're a fake Rare fan if you like this modern crap." And what they really mean is, all they want is a Banjo game. If all you want is a Banjo game, that's fine, but don't go around saying that is what it means to be a Rare fan. When you could just say, hey, I'm a really diehard Banjo fan, and that's what I'd like, is Banjo.
Right, and I think that's just the problem when you have a studio that's been around over 30 years, is that what that means to a certain person will be vastly different from another person. And They do move the goalpost, just like you wished you could move the goalpost when I was kicking your ass at IDARB today. So,
I feel like we ended that in an amicable little close match tie there, okay?
G-Man, sir, in the live stream says, Hyle, why did you cancel Banjo 3E? It's because I hate joy. It's just, I like.
He just wants to spite people on Twitter.
Right. You know, I like to run DK Vine, which is most people associate as a Donkey Kong fan site, but a lot of people also, know that we're big in the Banjo-Kazooie series and that we consider Banjo a spin-off of Donkey Kong. And I like to blow people's minds by saying, yeah, Banjo 3E, yeah, I convinced Craig Duncan not to do it. Anyway,
they were like, hey, we're thinking about, do we end Sea of Thieves? Do we make Banjo 3E, or do we find a way to make Sea of Thieves have slightly better load times on the Xbox Series X? And you said, oh man, that's a tough choice, but I really got to go with those load times. They're really killing me.
They come to me. They come to me, Jeff. I have a red phone.
They come to you on the day of your daughter is to be married, to ask you to kill somebody.
I haven't made a Batman reference all stream, so this is what I'm gonna do. I have a red phone that's like the red phone that the commissioner called that Alfred picked up on the classic 1966 series, and I'm like DK Vine Manor, and Craig Duncan is like, hi, what should I do? I don't know what to do. Do we go ahead with Banjo 3E? That's what I'm leaning towards, but we could also improve the load times and Sea of Thieves, but it would mean we'd have to cancel Banjo, and I'm like, Craig Duncan, you listen to me. You listen to me right now. You cancel Banjo. You burn all the plans you had for it. I never want to see any trace of this ever leaked. Because I'm that kind of person. Anyway, Sean says, also, where were the Nintendo-only Rare fans during the Wii U era? The Switch is hot shit, but just 4 years ago, Nintendo was on fire. I think he means on fire by, like, it was
a bad way.
Burning down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fans are weird. Fan culture is weird. You'll have
Everwild, Jeff. Everwild. Let's talk about Everwild, because this is a Rare game that is coming, that's being developed internally at Rare. All hands on deck for Everwild for the new Xbox Series X media showcase briefing bonanza spectacular direct, and this was being headed up by Louise O'Connor while Sea of Thieves was in early development, or not early development, but post announcement, pre-release, pre-technical alpha, whatever. Everwild. It's had a long and storied development history, but it was revealed last autumn. We talked about it, but we still don't know a lot about it. I expected to see a lot more about it at E3. Probably not a playable build or anything, but more info for sure. And I mean, what do you think? We've had a while to sit on the Everwild trailer. And any more thoughts on that?
The thing is, it's a cinematic trailer, not a gameplay trailer.
Right.
It's meant to whet the appetite, introduce a kind of vague notion of the world, the aesthetics, but like without any specifics on anything. And it's a beautiful trailer. It looks great. I think that there's no doubt that it would look great. Sea of Thieves still looks amazing. And it'll look even better on the upcoming Xbox Series X with improved load times. This is a game that it's not sitting in the immediate back of my mind like some other games. There are games that are right on the forefront of your mind, like oh man, this is what I'm thinking about right now. And then there's the stuff on the back of your mind that like you remember it maybe every week or every other week or so, and you're like, oh yeah, that's still coming out. I can't wait for that. Everwild is sitting farther back because I don't yet know, but it's one of those games that I know that as soon as I find out more, it's going to rocket to the forefront. Most likely, it's going to be one of those games that I'm just thinking about. And right now, it's not. I haven't put a lot of thought into it. Because they haven't given me enough to go on of like, You need some nuggets in order for your imagination. You need, at least a central mechanic. If they said this is a survival horror game, your imagination can go wild about like, oh, will it be like this game, or will it improve on that, or will it be like that other game and it'll be different, or will it be a mix of them both, or will it be a different take on it? But we don't even know what kind of game. Survival horror, that was just a random example.
I don't think
but we don't
Everwild
know.
is survival horror.
It's not. That was just a random example. We don't know even a very basic buzzword of what really it is.
Everwild.
So it's hard for the imagination to run with like. It's too vague right now. My imagination has to do too much legwork. I think that in some sense it's like going to be probably cooperative, shared experience with friends. We kind of get that impression with the fact that the people in the trailer, the individuals, they are traveling in a pack. So it's probably going to be this online kind of multiplayer cooperative thing. There's some kind of nature element, and we've had some inklings, some little tidbits out there saying it has some God game-like elements. There was at one point rumors that it was almost Viva Pinata-esque, and so my idea is thinking like, yes, you're going to play as a character, it'll be cooperative, but you're also going to be in some way building the world, like affecting nature, almost like in how Viva Pinata you build a garden in order to bring these creatures in. I'm thinking there will be an element of that, of like, you need to manipulate this world in some way in order to interact with the nature that is there. The animals, these fantasy animals that we see in the trailer. I think it will have an element of hands-on third-person gameplay, or maybe first-person, like Sea of Thieves, hard to know. But it will also have an element of, when they say God game, it means like a bird's-eye view that can like, affect the terrain and manipulate the environment. I think there will be an element of that, perhaps. But this isn't anything I haven't said on a previous podcast, so I don't have any new. I'm excited about it. I am very doubtful it will have a cameo of a DKU character anywhere in there.
You gotta have hope, Jeff. You gotta this is a long-standing DK Vine tradition. Whenever there is a new rare IP, we then play the game. Will it be DKU? And this has been the tradition since the days on the Nintendo 64. So buckle up, Buttercup, who is a bleeding edge character. Buckle up, Buttercup. You've got to speculate all the same. I think just like Sea of Thieves, it might not be DKU out of the gate, but it will become DKU over time. Hard to say. I will say that I love the look of the game. I love that it is a rare game that celebrates nature and our communion with nature. And this is just judging by the trailer and from what I've heard. But, we talk about like rare, right? And rare is a collection of IPs to some people. But to me, and I had a big Twitter thread about this a month or so ago. Like, rare is also it's almost an ethos, a worldview. And we see that with Sea of Thieves. If we divorce Sea of Thieves of like all this lore connection to the other Rare games, it would still feel like a Rare game, because Rare has always embraced this sense of exploring the tropics, piracy, this like Sea of Thieves feels like the culmination of so many threads in so many past Rare games. And I feel like Everwild is taking other threads that have also been woven through Rare games since I've been a Rare superfan, since Donkey Kong Country, and is really making a game about that, this time about like a celebration of nature and the wild and wildlife. And I'm excited about that.
The way I kind of think of it is that Rare's kind of soul, the main nugget that is what is Rare, that is in everything that Rare does, is it's like when people say something feels like a Nintendo game. They might say, this is a Nintendo game, but it doesn't feel like one. Or they say, well, that's not a Nintendo game, but it feels like a Nintendo game. And then you kind of have this core classic, main group of things that are like, oh yeah, those by Nintendo, those really feel like a Nintendo game. I don't have like a exact description of what that is, but Rare has that thing. Rare has that way of like, it feels like a Rare game. It's got design principles and aspects of the tone of the way, if it's irreverence and the attention to detail, things they do with like, just it's just the way it is. Whatever it is about the way it is, that's what it is that makes it feel like a Rare game. It is what it is because of how it is.
Rare
And it's like, yeah, that's what it is.
Rare can mean different things for different people. Like for me, like there's nature, a celebration of nature. There is like a sense of adventure, almost like an Indiana Jones-esque, just like explore exotic locales. And then there's also irreverence, dry British humor. Not taking itself too seriously or just taking the piss out of itself. All of those things are recurrent things in the Rare games I love. Now that doesn't mean that just has to be what Rare is. Rare has also made other games as well. It's, but as far as like my corner of Rare, and I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not those people say like what I like about Rare isn't necessarily what you have to like about Rare. But what I'm saying is when I look at Everwild in a trailer, I'm like, I see a lot of the things I've loved about past Rare games in this one, and I'm eager to learn more. And the weird thing is though, like ordinarily when you would announce a new Rare game, I would want so much, like I would be getting impatient, like I need to know more about Everwild. But with Sea of Thieves being a living game, I feel like every Sea of Thieves update feels like a mini new game. Like, new Sea of Thieves content. What is changed in Sea of Thieves? Oh, we can do this in Sea of Thieves now? This feels completely new. And I feel like I've been so engaged in Sea of Thieves for over 2 years. I mean, for 5 years since it was announced at E3 2015, but I've been actually playing the game and playing my personal pirate for over 2 years, and it hasn't gotten stale. If anything, I'm more invested in it than I was at launch. So I feel like I don't need to know more about Everwild until they're ready to tell me more about Everwild, because I am content when it comes to Rare.
Yeah, it's this weird thing, right? It's this weird, like, you can, like, there's the Venn diagram of, like, diehard Rare fans, and then people who really love Sea of Thieves, and then the intersection, and there is an intersection of a hefty one, but you can be outside of that intersection. You can love Rare and not like Sea of Thieves. You can love Sea of Thieves and never have played another Rare game or care to, and that's fine. But the people in that center seem to be happier. I'm not saying you should strive to be in that center if you're not, because it's all your personal taste. If you don't like Sea of Thieves, you're not going to like it. That's up to you. But I think that it's this fact of, like, I can be a diehard Rare fan, but I'm not necessarily just like starving for content, because I always am having that itch. That itch is being scratched every month, and it's like the ongoing. Like, I have an ongoing story and lore. It's like, in Donkey Kong Country, when Donkey Kong Country 2 comes out, and you're like, now there's these new characters, and now in Donkey Kong Country 3, Cranky Kong is no longer doing that. Now he is in the minigame, and then Funky Kong is now a mechanic, and he doesn't operate. And the characters are like in a new outfit, and like, and now it's Donkey Kong 64, and like, now that character is operating a music shop, and now Funky Kong sells weapons, and you get in this world evolving over time, and you're always, as a fan of Donkey Kong, you're like, man, it's been years since I had that itch of seeing where the series goes and what happens next, and digging into the lore and digging into what's new. And with Sea of Thieves, I get that itch scratched every single month. It's like old characters coming back, characters being repurposed, characters having more to their backstory, or like a new story that's not a backstory, but like a today story happening right now that happens over the course of months. And you're just getting all this stuff, and it's all the story, and then it's also the gameplay, and it's like new stuff to do, and you share the whole experience with your friends, which is a huge element of it for me. And so anyway, so I just feel like, because I'm the type of person who likes Sea of Thieves, and it's not your fault if you don't, but because I'm a happier Rare fan, because I'm always having the Rare itch scratched in a way that satisfies me. And so I'm not like, God damn, it's been 15 years since there's been a Banjo game. Like,
why are you from
yeah,
Wisconsin
I
or Minnesota?
Oh boy, oh boy, oh golly, oh geez, I wonder when they're gonna come out with one of them new Banjo games. Anyway, no, I want a new Banjo. I want to be back in the Banjo world. I want to see how that world evolves from the last time we saw it. I want to just be Banjo. There's like the satisfaction of like I control Banjo and I run around a 3D world. And you get a little bit of the sensation in the 2D world of Smash Brothers. You can be it's satisfying to be Banjo again. But it's not like this nagging like, man, I'm so disappointed all the time. I think about it every month that I can't play a new Banjo game. I don't have that feeling at all. I don't have that feeling of like anticipating Everwild because I need a new thing to scratch my fix. I get the fix scratched with Sea of Thieves. And I'm lucky that I got that.
Yeah, and that's a great point about the way it felt with the Donkey Kong series at the height of Rare's tenure, where we were getting a new game nearly every year, or well, more sometimes twice a year. And you got to see how the world was evolving and building on itself, and it felt like you were kind of living it. Well, with Sea of Thieves, we are living in it, and it's also a great feeling because you're living in it with your friends around the world. Like, you know, I'm at the age where I don't really have in real life friends. All my friends live across the United States, into Canada, over in the UK, in Australia. I mean, they're all over the map, and for me, like, Sea of Thieves keeps me engaged with them. It's how we hang out. It's what we do, is we play Sea of Thieves. We sail the ocean together in a Rare game that's evolving over time. And that's something I kind of dreamed about when I was a kid, right? I mean, I dreamed about it with Donkey Kong, but that's not going to happen. So this is the next best thing. So, yeah, so like just wrapping it up because we got 3 minutes until the Idaho crew takes back over for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. They'll be streaming that into the wee hours. They went 5 hours last night with the DKU multiplayer grab bag. I can't believe they went that long. But tonight I think they're just sticking with Mario Kart.
No, I think that they might mix it up because I can't imagine they're going to want to play Mario Kart 8 for more than like 90 minutes or 2 hours. But
but it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Jeff. That will tack on at least 2 more hours.
There's So, but yeah, anyway, stay tuned for that. As long as there's an audience, they'll keep streaming. Because they were having so much fun last night. I was having fun watching them, playing all those cool multiplayer games, and I think we'll talk more about it on our podcast tomorrow because I feel like talking about the week we have had so far and just kind of summarizing it.
Yeah.
It's been such a great time, and I don't think we have time to do it right now in the 2 minutes we've got.
We don't, and I do want to plug, because a lot of people are listening to this conversation live, and I want to give a shout-out to everyone who stayed with us. Thank you so much. G-Man's been giving me shit the whole time, and I've been enjoying that. It's been keeping me on my toes. But Dre's like, talk about Sony. You mean tomorrow? I can talk about Sony for the next minute and a half? Sure. No, I mean, we're going to be streaming tomorrow during Sony's little doodad. I mean, look,
yeah.
DK Vine as a brand.
We're going to lose our audience.
Yeah, well, DK Vine as a brand isn't really concerned with the PlayStation. We'll talk about it a little bit. We'll get some scuttlebutt, but I mean, the PlayStation, I'm happy for its fans. They're going to have a big E3 moment tomorrow. They're going to be the only ones, but I like what we've done with E3 this year. Anyway, to sum it all up, I'm happy with the state of Xbox. I turn on my Xbox every single fucking day, and the Xbox One has been the best purchase as far as consoles go that I've made since Jesus Christ, since the Nintendo 64. As far as how much I play it, how much time I spend with it, and how much is paid off for me. So, I mean, I never thought I'd be here.
It's the same, except it's the best I've purchased since the Nintendo Wii U. That was the last time. But it makes it sound like that's not a compliment, but it is. Well, anyway, I ruined your thing, Hyle. I ruined it.
It's okay. I'll just think about beer going up your dick hole, Jeff, and
I'm a PlayStation guy anyway.
Oh, fuck you. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Stay tuned. You might have to refresh the stream because we're switching over to Idaho, potato country. But stay tuned for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Hopefully they'll be playing as nothing but Donkey Kong. Maybe on Moo Moo Meadows. Do an all Donkey Kong match on Moo Moo Meadows for me, guys. Thank you.
This has been a File 2 production.
Que rico.